Okay. It's recording.
It's recording now? Okay.
Yes.
Starting recording. It's starting right now.
But I don't.
Okay, now it's recording. That's great. Okay. Hi, Rachel. Good to see you after so many attempts of calls, so many, trying the Google Meet, trying the Messenger call, and finally we got here with the Skype call, and it's like our fifth attempt, I believe, right? Like our fifth attempt.
I think it's like the 25th attempt.
25th, yeah, exactly. 25th. That sucks.
With all the different methods.
Yeah, it's just horrible, how we get to have, these tech hackers, cutting our connections over and over, tapping, and they hear us. They can just they're right now running remote neural monitoring on me. I don't know what's your situation.
They're torturing the hell out of me ever since we got this video started.
Well, really? Mine too. They're attacking me here.
I was fine.
They're attacking me here. Yeah, this is the skill part, Rachel. You can see. This is the skill part, that they're attacking. They want to make you slow, lazy, and stop talking about these stuff that's actually, like a world matter, the important matter. Well, I'm glad that we finally made it here, and thank you for being resilient as well, really, Rachel, for trying so many times. I know you're getting tortured, you get, attacked, your network is, tapped as well, just like mine, hacked, and they try to, drop your connection. And I know the situation that we are in is pretty crazy, it's just hard to deal with it. But their attempt, always is just to make us lazy, make us feel, dull, so we're not active, just be on bed so they could rape you and then run their what?
It's kind of opposite for me right now. I'm feeling so restless. I can't sit anymore. I have to stand.
Yeah.
It's absolutely too much for me. I sat too long.
Yeah.
So no, they don't do that to me anymore. They had me work. They have me work all the time now.
Yeah.
They suffocated me for 10 years. They turned off the suffocation torture in 2018, and now they want me to work from day to night constantly. I don't think I can do this right now. We're gonna have to do it later. I can't sit anymore. We're gonna have to do it later. This is just too fucking much.
Yeah, sorry, Rachel. Sorry.
By the time we got it going, I can't sit for that long.
Yeah. Sorry, Rachel. Yeah.
Ever since I got the connection over, it started fucking with me. I'd be better off using the phone to do it. Maybe we can get it to work on the phone. Maybe not have all that sitting. Because I can't do it anymore. I can't. Yeah.
It's terrible. I know. Stay strong. You're strong and you're coping. I know.
I was doing just fine right before the phone connected, and then now that it's connected, they're burning me, fucking with my head, and making me feel so restless. Like I just can't even sit.
They're attacking my chest too right now. Just causing asthma. That kind of like blocks your breathing system. It's terrible. And you got to be very careful with the diet, Rachel. And the food. That you eat. They attack your stomach, right away. At that time, they elevate your pressure.
They don't want you to eat. It's behavior modification. So if they don't want you to eat something like sugar, like I had to give up sugar completely. I could put a little bit of honey in with some raw cocoa nibs sometimes and make my own chocolate and eat it once or twice a week. But if I eat sugar, even just a little in some coffee or something, they'll suffocate me for that. At least that was the last torture they decided to do. Or they might burn my stomach or digestive system, or they might make me sleep too much or whatever. But I just don't even do it anymore. They almost killed me just for eating things like a couple pieces of Halloween candy.
Wow.
Years ago. So from suffocation. So I just eat only organic. Very rarely anything that isn't organic.
Yeah.
And I prepare everything myself from scratch.
Yeah. It's pretty disgusting, you know. They have their nose in everything that we do in our business, you know. Even though, for example, I told you I'm working, studying, and tutoring, they still just get, you know, in the middle of everywhere and then attack. Weekend is like a hell for me. They attack me, you know, like pretty bad. Yeah, on the weekend. Yeah. They want you to be on the bed so they could run their synthetic telepathy, rape you, and then harass you, and then torture you, you know, in their derogatory and inhuman manner. Okay, Rachel. So about remote neuromonitoring, right? So do you feel that they're running remote neuromonitoring on you whenever it happens?
I don't have to feel it. They just do it all the time, 24 hours a day. There's no feelings associated with it except what they cause. So if they want you to hear ringing in your ears when they decide to do something, then they'll do that, and they'll try to associate the ringing with remote neural monitoring, when remote neural monitoring doesn't require that. It doesn't require any burning or any other type of torture other than the mind control itself. So some people are constantly experiencing a particular type of torture along with their remote neural monitoring or remote neural manipulation to get them to believe that that technology requires them to experience that torture, but it doesn't. It's a manipulation. So remote neural monitoring isn't for a person who's covert. The remote neural monitoring doesn't look like anything at all to them. They might behave differently, have different emotions than they normally have in natural life. They might say things that they wouldn't normally say because they're under mind control, but they don't actually have any sensation to tell them that they are under mind control. And that is how the way that I perceive it and the way that it's been demonstrated to me, the entire human race is under that at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah.
Connected to people from all over the world, every continent, many different countries. And it's not until they start openly torturing you or showing you the mind control inside your own mind that that you even know what's happening. So most people are totally unaware that they're under mind control, even though they are. And the people that do know get discredited through psychological operations and tortured and abused so that people think they're crazy and don't believe them when they try to explain it.
Yeah. 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 This is their art, you know, to discredit the target, to isolate.
Yeah. It protects the perpetrators. And what the CIA term for it, I suppose, is clandestine operations to make it look like there's nothing happening at all. And that's what, there's tactics that will correlate with your everyday life, like eating certain foods could be considered a food sensitivity if you have a reaction. Or they set algorithms through the remote neural monitoring and remote neural manipulation system to create synthetically induced reactions to different foods to alter a person's behavior so that they start acting different. And how they want the person to act might depend on what ends they want. Like, for example, if somebody has a reaction to eating something that they normally eat all the time, that they don't normally react to, all of a sudden, say they get sick from it, they get a headache or a stomach ache or twitchy or suffocation or any type of reaction at all, stuffy nose, there's a whole bunch of things that could happen. And that could be perceived by the person as I just got poisoned. Or it could be perceived as they must have changed the ingredients. Or it could be perceived as I am suddenly sensitive to this food that I wasn't sensitive to before. I'm developing food sensitivities. There's a whole bunch of different thoughts that might go along with that reaction. And I think that different people are manipulated in different ways to change their perceptions to carry out different results in their behavior.
Yeah, they make you allergic to certain food. And then they say, oh, this is part of, you know, like,
Yeah. Like, there was one day they decided to start giving me hives every time I touched my cat. And it wasn't like like I touched the cat with my arm and I get hives on my arm. I just touched the cat with my hand, they give me hives on my face or my neck or my eyes or something, even though I didn't touch my eyes or anything at all. And that was to show me that they can just give you hives for nothing. They had a synthetic bee sting on my foot once in the house in the middle of winter when there's no bees around at all. Now, if it happened outside in the grass or something, you might think, oh, maybe I just didn't see the bee. It's in the grass somewhere. I can't find it. But if you're on a concrete or a wood floor and you step on nothing and all of a sudden you get a bee sting sensation and a giant welt, there's nothing there. There's no explanation for that. And during the beginning of the overt phase of my targeting, they did a lot of things like that to show me how they manipulate people into believing that something is happening that isn't. And they even burned a hole in my skin right in front of me while I watched. And these are the types of holes that they make on Morgellons victims. Because many years ago, they did that to me in my sleep. And because I didn't see the burn actually manifest, I just thought it was a weird infection, you know, when really they were doing it while I couldn't watch them do it. When they finally showed me that they can just burn a hole in your skin, then I understood they're manipulating people's perceptions and in that way as well.
Yeah. Do you know that remote neuromonitoring agents, you know, I believe there are many people, more than one involved, because they even do it, you know, when you're asleep, because you're going to think like, how are these people, you know, taking their time from their sleeping and they're running remote neuromonitoring when we're sleeping? For example, whenever I'm in the bed around 3 a.m., they're running remote neuromonitoring. They're provoking, they're inducing negative thoughts, and they're reading our plans. And then during the day, when we go to a certain place, and then you see the perps with their cell phones, and then you're like, how do these perps know that I'm here, that I'm coming here? It's just the remote neuromonitoring. They're just running it like a traffic system, you know, on human beings.
Those
they read
people
your thoughts.
They don't have to know. The people that are gang stalking, they can be completely oblivious. They don't have to know anything at all because they can be covertly controlled through the mind control to go to the store at a certain time, hold their phone a certain way so it looks like it's pointed at you right where you're getting hit, or a variety of different things. They could be programmed to have to pee in the middle of the night, the exact same time you get up to go pee, and you can hear them through the wall or whatever every single time. It's all designed by out, and there doesn't have to be a person programming all that. All they have to do is program the computer to do those things.
Exactly.
They can surround someone with multiple chemical sensitivity with people that have perfume on by directing those people around the person. And it doesn't mean they're intentionally trying to do that to you as individuals. It's just someone has programmed their minds to do that through the remote neural monitoring and remote neural manipulation systems.
Yeah, because back in the joint dorm when I was living with about 200 people, right, in my previous YouTube videos that I posted, I was living in the giant students dorm here, and there was one perp that was actually mind controlled and being tortured, and I wasn't at that level back then. And then I just noticed he'd have this sneezing sensitivity. You know, he just always sneeze. His nostrils were blocked. You know, he'd cough all the time, and it was pretty weird for me because, you know, if there were some chemicals or stuff that would affect me as well. But then you mentioning this remote neuromonitoring, right? How they just do it, you know, through the brain Neuro Link system, you know, like making you sensitive to certain smells, even to normal smells, to normal noise, sounds, etc. This can happen because it's happening right now. It happened to me like a couple of months ago and still is happening to me. And I remember back then, you know, that certain person, that this was really done remotely to that person.
Yes. Yes, even simple things like if I buy a piece of clothing online they don't want me to wear, they'll have me think that it smells like perfume, even if it doesn't. And if I put it away for a couple years and the smell magically goes away and I pull it out and it smells brand new like nothing, It doesn't mean the perfume smell went away. It meant that it was probably never there. I was actually just made to think that it was because my sense of smell was being manipulated. And I didn't know this for 10 years, where I was using air cleaners and gas masks to go into public because of the torture reactions that went along with the smells, caused me to think that the chemical smells were causing the asthma, when really it was torture technology combined with the different torture technology. It was the smell enhancement combined with the suffocation torture, and they put on a whole show to demonstrate to me that they could just suffocate me for over nothing in perfectly clean air when I haven't eaten anything at all except some filtered water, and I filtered it myself, so I know it's safe. You know, they just put on a whole show. There's the choking, there's the all of it, the sneezing, anything. They just they can induce it with technology.
And I feel, you know, pretty bad for those TIs that aren't aware. For example, a couple of our TIs, you know, fellow TIs, they're getting too much involved with the burps and their surroundings and their neighborhood, and then they're saying it's their neighbors, it's their families, etc. But I come to realize and know this, you know, that from certain time, you know, that it's just the ones that are actually manipulating these people, you know, because I have seen these group of, you know, like they call it the handler type of people, you know, like there are every group has a head, and that person controls them, and that person who's like a head is on V2K, for example. And one of the TI said, you know, why don't you punch them and why don't you just fight with them? I said, okay, there's somebody, you know, walking with the dog outside on. Are you gonna sit down and bark at the dog, get involved with the dog, or are you just gonna give the owner a sign, keep your dog, you know? It's like take it, you know, with your legs away.
Well,
this is how they want.
If you've got someone speaking to you in your mind, you don't know who that is. Just because it sounds like someone that you know, they can make it sound like someone that's dead, or they can make it sound like your own voice, or any number of different people. Just because you hear someone that you know speaking to you in your mind doesn't mean it's that person. And it's like the whole clandestine operation thing of making it, or covert operation, whatever, of making it appear like it's somebody else. It's coming from some other source than what it really is. So you start chasing this and that you believe to be a problem, when really they're like, I don't know what's going on. And the real person doing it is completely hidden. You can't even pinpoint them because they don't even appear to exist. And it isolates people. It isolates people when you start pointing fingers, and that's a huge part of the purpose. And so does multiple chemical sensitivities, or the technology that causes that. Because it makes you just want to stay away from everyone. Everyone stinks. They're all covered in chemicals. You know, you just want to lock your door and run air cleaners and just stay away from everyone and not even go into public. And then when you do, you have to like if it's really bad, like it was for me, you have to put on a gas mask. No one can see your face. You can't smile at people. They look at you like you're a terrorist. Now it's different because everyone's got masks on, but except for me, you know. It was also set up. They prepared to take away the chemical sensitivities and have me finally take my gas mask off and go back into public and start to try to socialize a little, go to stores again after years of being at home and having someone else do my shopping. They had it set up so that this fake pandemic thing would happen where everybody's suddenly covering their faces, and I absolutely refuse to, because I'm traumatized from having to do that, you know? So that's another thing, is the weird psychological games that are personally directed to hurt us.
Yeah, to desocialize us, for example. They have, you can notice that your neighborhood is usually formed with people deployed by the handler. They want those people to be your neighbors, other than the ones that are normally supposed to be your neighbors. And they're always, you know, on V2K. They're always, you know, mind controlled. They're always giving commands, to do certain things on certain times, even though it's not organized at most times, but they're tortured in the similar way, but it seems kind of like annoying to the target. And the target ends up, getting engaged with those people.
When they first went overt, and it was actually at the end of 2017, I noticed this red dot up in the trees, really high up in a tree, like probably a good 70 to 100 feet up in a tree, all the way over my neighbor's yard. And I could only see it at night from one particular place in the yard that they were looking at. And if I walked around the yard, I couldn't see it from anywhere else. And I determined that it was the infrared camera. And I thought that it was coming from the neighbors. But then they showed me later on, when they started really attacking my heart really bad with microwave weapons, they would start turning the red light up, like it would become bigger. And so it appeared that there was a weapon. And then they started making them in other people's yards. But that doesn't mean, those people were involved or knew anything, because all it takes is a tiny little military drone flying up into a tree and shining a light.
Exactly.
And they've used the weapons from a different source, which is, if you read, the patents that are apparently used to do this, you don't need a laser beam, or it's directed energy weapons. So it just manifests where they're targeting it by using the hertz frequency of the body part that they want to target, combined with the microwave, so that it heats up from the inside out, like a potato in the microwave. They don't have to go through walls or beam through things or hit anything else in its path, because it won't. It will only direct into the hertz frequency that it is programmed to hit. So there doesn't have to be somebody holding a weapon. All you need is maybe a micro tower in your vicinity, or a satellite, or a drone, or something. I don't know. There's a lot of different locations that could be from.
Yeah. They can do the GPS spoofing, right? Through those satellite drones that you mentioned. I've seen a couple of them here, because they're like the fake stars. And I can notice, that they're like the orange color. The real stars twinkle and spark very different than the fake ones, And they have like
I know anything about that.
Yeah, I guess 4 in here, all over the place. It's a military. Yeah, it's a military drones, and they want to fake it to look like stars. Sometimes they even put them between the two stars. And I look at it, just realize that this is just a drone, it's real. And GPS spoofing, right? As I mentioned, they can use the currents in your electricity around your house to hit you with those currents. It's called GPS spoofing. They can use the device in your house. For example, the fan, they can mix the frequency with it, and then they direct the frequencies at you. That's the electromagnetics, right? And I even woke up, 3 times with the being directed, from that direction. That they were charging it, with the electromagnetics, try to make me confused, like where is it coming from? But that's absolutely the satellite drones. Yeah, that is. It says poor connection.
Yeah, it's kind of breaking up a little here and there.
Yeah, they're making it poor, right?
Yeah.
They make everything poor and slow for us, right? Just antagonize.
Ethernet cable, so it should be fine. There isn't any there's no Wi-Fi, there's no nothing. It's just the Ethernet cable. Yeah, there's a lot of different technologies that are capable of doing the same thing. Also, like some people will mistake voice to skull and remote neural monitoring in the mind. Like, there's different ways they could speak to you. They could speak through like the fan noise, which I believe would be like voice to skull, things that you actually hear with your ears. Whereas I don't have that very much. They've done it before, where they'd play music through different subtle noises, or say different mantras through bubbling water or something. But what I have all the time, 24/7, is the remote neural monitoring people or voices. Sometimes what it appears to be is a lot of times it's just a computer program that's running that will say things in response to what I'm thinking or doing. But it's also people at times, and they're using voices that are programmed. Like it's not like a guy on a microphone or whatever talking to me. It's somebody else thinking into a computer that takes their thoughts, makes it into the voice that they've chosen to use, and then projects it into my mind. So it's not just voices with remote neural monitoring and remote neural manipulation. They're actually able to move my body remotely, alter my emotions and personality. And if there's an operative, not just the computer system, but an actual operative working through my mind, brain to brain interfacing with my mind, they can actually take over whatever I'm doing, and like they could make me kick the wall accidentally and stub my toe, or they could make me miss every nail that I try to hit with the hammer when I'm putting nails in the walls to put up the wallboards, which turned out to be a little bit of a mess because of that. Or they might help me do something like I'm nothing's coming to mind right now, but what it feels like is another person, like demonic possession, I guess you could say. It's kind of like that, but it's not always demonic. It's just it's usually a man who just like takes over. They'll change my facial expression, and it's like they're trying to mimic multiple personalities while they do it. And then they could come through and like try to touch my leg or something, or try to hold my hand with my other hand and do weird creepy things like that.
That's what they do to me as well.
Or they'll torture me really bad, and they'll be like, oh, we're just going to comfort you now, or whatever weird thing to make it really eerie. And what I've come to the conclusion of is that they're using electroencephalogram readings to do that. Where they take a person, they pick up a whole series of different emotional states, physical movements, all these different things, and they create a computerized version of that person. And then the actual man can pick that as his avatar to present himself to the targeted person as in their mind that takes over the body. So when they first went over it, they were using 3 different layers of these people simultaneously all the time. And they've kind of changed that now. It's not so intense anymore. But I could feel all 3 personalities and their different behaviors and emotions and things all at the same time for at least the first year or 2. Since 2018.
They're attacking my throat right now. So I'm going to cough, sorry.
Sometimes they'll do a thing where they'll make it
you can see, Rachel,
or drip and burn.
Sorry. Yeah, they burn chest, they burn throat, and then they pressure the neck. That's the stem of the neck, that they mix, and sync their Neuro Link technology to which they control us, our certain body movements, as you said. You can see, Rachel, that they're targeting the psychiatrists and psychologists in massive numbers. I had seen one in 2017. I actually had asked a couple of group of students, in the other university for help. They're making me cough. So they referred a psychologist that came. The psychologist was so much like tortured that now I perceive it. Back then I was like, wow, this person really needs help. How does this person work? How does this person work as a psychologist? Because this person looks tormented, lost, and sick. And now I realize that in this game that they're torturing the psychologists and psychiatrists in order to subdue them. But they have also their people that are actually serving to run their errands and to make their patients wrongfully label a person as mentally ill through all these psyop operations, that they run around the target.
When it comes to psychiatry and the medical industry, the doctors, the nurses, psychiatrists, they're all manipulated because they don't think like we do. They don't look at all the different possibilities. They don't consider that there may be conspiracies or different. They just believe what they're told and they go along with it. And they basically we end up with doctors and nurses murdering people. We end up with psychiatrists driving people crazy. And it isn't always because they're trying to do that. It's because they really are so stupid they think that they're doing the right thing. And a lot of people get tortured with remote technology for taking drugs and different food additives or poisons. And the way that I've become to perceive it is as a sort of eugenics program. If somebody is so addicted to a certain drug or eating candy every day or something like that, or they even like if they have dental fillings with mercury in them, they'll burn them out. They do all these really mean things, but ultimately they tend to do it for things that are bad for you anyways. Not always. I'm not going to say it's always that way because it's not. They tortured me for carrot juice, which was ridiculous. But they'll pick things that are bad for you anyways, and for two reasons. One, to get you to stop doing it. Maybe they'll try to get you to do it a lot so that you just hit rock bottom and then you stop, because that's kind of how drug addiction works and stuff. And with the psychiatry, with the drugs that they have, it's kind of the same thing, because people become dependent. Even if it's a psychological dependency, they become dependent on those drugs, and then they might also be getting remotely tortured for them.
Yeah.
And then also it creates plausible deniability, because if you're taking a drug and you have and you're being tortured, a doctor might say, oh, well, that's just a side effect of the drug.
Exactly.
And that hides the actual cause of the torture. And that's how everything seems to be done in this program. And what I found is if you eliminate the majority of the things that could be used as an excuse, so that there's no, like, if there's absolutely no reason at all why you would have a certain, like, suffocation.
Yeah.
Like, if you, like, I eliminated every single chemical in my environment. I built my house non-toxic so that I would be away. I'm out in the woods, away from other people's dryer vents. I had air filters running to filter out any residual air pollution that might get in. There was no reason. I was eating all organic food. At some point, there was no more plausible deniability in why I would have asthma or allergies. There was nothing left. If you're sitting in a blank room with perfectly clean air and everything, it's something else. So I eliminated sugar, and they'll get you down to where you've got almost nothing left, but you're eating only a few foods and everything's scrubbed perfectly clean, and there's no chemicals around you at all. There's not even a germ probably. And then they'll try to get you to start eating things again one at a time. They'll desensitize you eventually. Like, what they did to me is, after I got done adapting to not wearing a gas mask anymore, I could go back into public again. The smells, the heavy smells were turned down. My asthma was completely gone, and still is. They cranked up perfume in my house, just out of nowhere. Cranked up perfume smell, really strong. And I was like, what in the hell? There's no way it could be there. So I ran out into the woods, and it was still there. No matter where I went, what I did, it was still there. And I freaked out, and I cried, and I was like, what in the fuck? And I came back to my house, and I realized that I have to actually just wait for them to turn it off, because it isn't even real. Or when I was at my boyfriend's house, he would do the laundry. And I would get my laundry and everything would smell like nothing, but one thing in the laundry would smell like detergent, even though they were all washed together in the same batch. And I was like expected by these perpetrators to just put it on and ignore it because it wasn't real, because it wasn't actually even there. And there was a whole desensitization period that they put me through. Every time I'd get behind a truck, new or old, driving down the street, even with the windows up, they'd make me smell diesel really strong. And then I had to just ignore it. It was like I was expected to ignore these horrible smells. And they didn't do that until probably a year after they turned off all the torture involved with respiratory stuff, and they made the smells go away, and they turned the sneezing off and all of that. And they were torturing me in other ways during that time. I was being burned with microwave weapons a lot, but it was like a program. They put me through a 10-year program, and it was horrible as hell and traumatizing.
That's just horrible how they sensitize a person, you know, to certain things. For example, the smells that you mentioned, and this really has to do with your Neuro Links as well, right? And with also, you know, with the canisters that they shoot. They can shoot the canister. For example, if you have plants outside your window or a tree, you're going to see a truck passing by, and they're going to shoot the canister, and the smell in the environment all of a sudden completely. Yeah, they shoot canisters. They have the guns, you know, and then they have the special emitters, you know. As I have that video with the Don, you
there's different people
Don Lovell, you know, he's in California.
And sometimes
exactly, yeah,
the things we experience are very similar, but they're different.
Yeah.
Like there might be people who are really being poisoned. Their food is really being poisoned. Whereas I found out after a long, I was not. I was being tortured in response to eating food additives or just being tortured. I was just being tortured remotely. So I wasn't actually being poisoned, but I thought that I was being poisoned because I was suddenly sensitive. That was just my perception. There might be people that really are being poisoned, and I can't say that there isn't because I can't know what everyone's going through. So when somebody that's been through what I've been that wasn't actually poisoned directly, I mean, I suppose I was, because perfume is poison and food additives are poison and sulfite pulp mill gases are toxic. And those are the things that, so low levels of poison, mercury dental fillings, which I had to have removed. All of those things really are poison, but it wasn't so severe, like someone actually coming and gassing me, that didn't happen to me. So when someone that might actually be happening to see someone like me, they might go, she's a perp because she says it isn't happening, or she says her head or whatever. And it turns people against each other. And it's the same with the V2K and the RNM technologies. They're different, but they're the same. One person might be saying, I hear voices with my ears. And another person might be saying, well, I hear them in my mind. And they might point at each other and say, you're a perp because you're not experiencing the same thing as me.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of confusion with that.
A lot, yeah. Yeah, it's just like the general, the content is the same in the general, aspect, but we have our different experiences, like different levels. As I mentioned, back in the giant dorm I was living of 200 people, whenever I went to take shower, after classes, then I just go inside, and try to reach my bed. And there was that military perp there who just exploded that canister of the chemicals, that was really, really terrifying. And that was exactly my corner that was getting affected because there were just like many other beds, in the lines. And it usually did it, whenever each time I was finished, taking shower. And they would do the similar smell. They would just carry around the similar smell on the way to my internship to make me think that they can just move it around everywhere. And then I realized that they were sensitizing me to smells, and they were just getting, data from the Neuro Links, right? Through remote neural monitoring. And they were kind of like recording that in the supercomputer system. And then they could just make me feel that smell remotely without that smell being, exploited there.
Yeah.
I learned that. Wow, that's just pretty crazy. I mean, they put people around you, they just sensitize you to noise, they sensitize you to harassment, and then they get a reaction of you, record your reactions, record the data, and then they just set them to you, like send them over whenever there aren't even people, to make you think that it's the people doing this, to make you think, just like you said, that it's the smell, that's being exploded, in your surroundings. That's just how they want to make us
Now,
get
there are
lost.
actual operatives, though, that came onto the land that I live on and did things around my property. Because, people will talk about them doing all kinds of mean things. Well, they didn't do so much of that. They just did, it was kind of creepy in the opposite way, because they do nice things. Like, I lost my key one day, my car key, and I just kept dumping my purse out, and I dumped out every single thing in my purse. I turned it inside out. I looked at every single item 4 times. I searched everywhere, all over the ground where it could have fallen. I couldn't find it. And at that time, I'd sleep with my purse on the inside of by the wall, and I didn't have my window in next to my bed then. So I'm up in a loft, a tiny house loft, with my purse on the other side of me. And in the morning, my key was right there on top, where someone had crawled over me and put it in my purse. And another time, I was having some problems with my chainsaw where the chain kept falling off, and I got so tired of trying to put it back on that the last time it fell off, I just left it off, and I set it in my shed. And I didn't have my shed locked. But when I went back the next day, the chain was on the chainsaw, and there's no way I did it, because it's a big hassle for me. I mean, somebody actually went in there and put it back on. And they used to come in, they'd have one guy over here in the bushes and another guy over here in the bushes, and they would shoot this thing at my bathtub, so it would go ping really loud and like freak me out when I was in the bath, because I had an outdoor bathtub where I was hauling water, working on the plumbing. So they were like, they do that every single night almost for a while.
Yeah.
And they stopped doing it. And I would hear them in the bushes, and I'd be like, well, maybe it's just a deer, Maybe it was. Maybe there wasn't anyone in my bushes. Maybe there was just a deer over here, a deer over there, walking through the woods, and they remotely made my bathtub ping with some kind of weapon.
Yeah.
I don't know. But they
it's
definitely
directed energy weapon. Yeah.
And did things.
They do the same to me when I'm at work. They do it to the windows, like in the surroundings. They just like clutch sounds.
My
Wow,
shed,
what happened? There's no one there. Yeah.
Like
they shake it.
Shake it like a.
Yeah.
And it was only for a period of time. Like for a couple months, they did that every once in a while, and then they stopped. Yeah.
The bed, for example. I was sleeping, and then they just shake the bed. And one day, I just asked the other person that I was sharing the house with, was there an earthquake? Because my bed was shaking, and then the wardrobe was also shaking. It was just nothing like that. Now I realize that it was done through directed energy weapon. They can shake your bed.
Yeah, they could shake. They did this
shake
thing
the objects in your place.
Rumble, or would shake and stop, shake and stop, and it was because they wanted me to get up and move around. They didn't want me sitting. They didn't want me sleeping. Or sleep depriving me. And you can't sleep through that, because it was my body, my whole body. It wasn't like I physically shook, but I could feel it through my body. And I called it the rumble. It was very intense. It would drive a person crazy just that alone if they didn't.
They even did it to my body. Yeah.
They only did it for about a week or maybe a little longer than that. And then
it's crazy. I mean, this lily waves that they use, the electromagnetics that they use, for example, remotely when you're sleeping, like at certain times, they just grab, me by the thigh and the leg, and then they just shake me. And it felt like somebody was doing this to me. Somebody was grabbing my legs and pulling me, like to that side and shaking me. Wow, they can do that through lily waves.
Yes.
Wow. I'm so glad, Rachel, that you were able to come and we have a little discussion, these two really important points. And thank you for your time, for your effort, for your patience. You're a strong woman and you're a strong person. You should be really proud of yourself that you're fighting and continuing and you're going through all that. I can just tell you how hard it is, as it's been like fourth year of mine dealing with it, myself while studying, and
Yeah.
I'm hoping, freedom and wellness for all of us, peace for all of us, right? That these psychopaths, that they have so much, like so much patience. I mean, imagine they break into someone's house just to like remove an item from one place, from its original place. Just they do these little stupid things to someone to antagonize a person.
If you think about it, some of that could be training for
Yeah.
military.
Military, exactly. A lot of military.
They have a training that they're going to go and do this little thing to this person, and it's just part of their training. It could be
tear
happening.
someone's underwear, tear someone's pants, jackets, remove the items
for it. It's something that happened to my dad. He used to complain all the time when I was a teenager that he said that my uncle was stealing his underwear, his brand new underwear right out of the dryer, and replacing it with old dirty poop stained underwear with holes in it.
Oh my God.
Well, years later, I found a bag of brand new underwear that was probably his, stashed away, and it doesn't mean that it was my uncle doing it. It could have been an operative actually coming into the basement of the house and doing that, and then the remote neural monitoring used on my dad to make him believe that it was his brother, and then making him blame him for everything and cause a big old fuss over that. So I guess that's a really common one, people having their underwear stolen.
Yeah, that's how TIs end up having a conflict with their roommates, right? With their families, with their friends. You're doing this to me. Well, there's some other evil, behind that background.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank you.
I don't know what time there it is, but here it's 10:42 at night.
It's 6:42 here.
Oh, quite a difference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm so glad that we were able to make it, and I wish you have a nice day and hang in there. And thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye. And see if the stop button works.